he sent former Speaker Nancy Pelosi literally packing as he ordered her to leave her private office space. Quote, please vacate the space tomorrow. The room will be rekeyed. The room is being reassigned for Speaker office use, end quote. I'm Stephanie Keith.
And I am Tara Manjekovic. And we are Unapologetically Outspoken.
Hey, everyone. So it has been a busy few days in the news, and Tara and I are going to cover the big news, which is Kevin McCarthy being ousted from Speaker of the House. And this was less than a year into the position in a completely unprecedented move. So we have to talk about it. I know we talked about what was happening in Congress already, but the news just keeps coming. So I was watching the other day, and it like took me a minute to look at the vote. I saw 216 to 210 until I realized what that meant. But as usual, all of the Democrats stuck together and voted together. And then there were 8 Republicans, which are being labeled as like these hardliners and extreme, the extreme right, MAGA, whatever they want to call them, right? So I want to start it out by playing a clip from Matt Gaetz where him and Nancy Mace went on the war room with Steve Bannon, and they were talking about why they voted to remove McCarthy. They're part of this group of 8. And I think it's important to hear what they have to say because it really sheds light on how these people are being labeled as hard right, but they're actually the ones that are willing to compromise and like work with the other side and do what we need to do to fix the government that has just been completely out of control for a while now, even if it means being attacked by their own party, which they are. They said that the attacks started that night from the GOP. And so I just want to play a little bit of what they had to say.
Hard right about saying we should follow the law. Like, the law requires these single subject spending bills and a budget to be passed. What's hard right about saying when you say 72 hours to read the bill, you don't get to waive that to pass a continuing resolution? What's hard right about saying something that spends more than $100 million should not go on the suspension agenda or it is not subject to amendment? The things I am fighting for are good government and
reasonable things.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a centrist. I would say small L libertarian, fiscally conservative, socially sensible. Matt and I agree on like 98% of the things, but it's not unreasonable to ask Congress just follow the law. Law from 1974, the Budget Impact and Control Act says a budget and 12 spending bills. Now, he and I are not going to agree with leadership or either side of the aisle on the amount they're going to spend. They're going to spend way more than we would ever want. But you still have a process where the bills are vetted, they're amended, the people have a say through their representative, and then they're voted on the floor, not the CRs and the omnibuses.
And we would vote different ways on some of these amendments. Yeah. And there's an interesting ability with more voting and actual legislating,
much better,
for coalitions to form.
Yes.
And for us to work together. And it'll be okay if we take a lot of votes. If we're together on some things, debate against one another on others, that's real governing. And it never happens here because they delay everything, back you up against shutdown politics, and then just get you to vote for a continuing resolution where the lobbyists are in charge of what's in.
So I go back and forth on Matt Gaetz, just like in the beginning when they were voting in McCarthy and he was causing all those issues. It's like 1 minute I was with him and the next minute I'm like, this guy's crazy. But something has to be done because they're absolutely right. The same story keeps playing out over and over again with this crazy spending that ends up being a continuing resolution and then a huge omnibus bill. So it was a risk and they have a huge target on their back now, but I think it was needed. So McCarthy, he accused those 8 Republicans who voted against him of not being conservatives. And he said, quote, they don't get to say they're conservative because they're angry and they're chaotic. That's not the party I belong to. The party of Reagan was if you believed in your principles that you could govern in a conservative way. They are not conservative and they do not have the right to have the title, end quote. But that's exactly the point that Matt Gaetz and Nancy Mace were making when they were doing this interview with Steve Bannon. Like, they're not the typical Republicans that are going to keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again that have played out for years now. They're going to stand up for what's best for the people of this country. And now the deep state is coming for them. And so the 8 Republicans that voted against McCarthy were Matt Gaetz of Florida, Nancy Mace of South Carolina, Andy Biggs of Arizona. He's one of the guys that's been very outspoken about the border and child trafficking. Then you have Ken Buck of Colorado, Tim Burchett of Tennessee, Eli Crane of Arizona, Bob Good of Virginia, and Matt Rosendale of Montana.
Okay, I just have to say, like, I was really surprised that some of the more outspoken Republicans didn't vote to oust McCarthy. Like, I expected Marjorie Taylor Greene was going to speak out. And I honestly didn't really recognize some of these names. Like Eli Crane from Arizona, never heard of him. Bob Good, Virginia, never heard of him. Like, the list actually surprised me.
Me too. I haven't heard of any of those guys either. And yeah, I thought for sure it was going to be Marjorie Taylor Greene, like the first name on the list, but
Yeah.
it wasn't. And so I think it's really interesting to see what's happening within the Republican Party right now. In a press conference Tuesday, McCarthy said, quote, "I don't regret standing up for choosing government over grievance. It's my responsibility. It is my job. I do not regret negotiating. Our government is designed to find compromise. I don't regret my efforts to build coalitions and find solutions. I was raised to solve problems, not create them." So the final straw with that for Matt Gaetz was McCarthy making this side deal to keep funding the war in Ukraine. And I think we touched on that like briefly in our episode on this a couple days ago, where Biden had like slipped up that they were going to continue funding Ukraine, which means McCarthy went behind the Republicans' backs to make this deal. And
remember he met with Zelensky in private.
yeah,
We talked about that and how weird that was.
Yeah,
So
like
clearly that's what happened.
He's done a lot of shady things, and I don't really think it's a surprise to a lot of people. Like, I think that was the whole reason in the beginning why Matt Gaetz wanted to put in this stipulation that anyone could try to remove the speaker, because they kind of know he's part of this whole establishment uniparty. Nancy Mace, though, she was the surprise that no one saw coming. Like, when she cast her vote, everyone gasped. Like, everyone was just in complete shock because she is so moderate. She lives in like a purple district and is typically like, you know, kind of on the middle of a lot of issues. She's like fiscally conservative, but not really conservative on things like abortion and like some of that other stuff. But she said that what did it for her was McCarthy not sticking to his word and doing what he promised. And what he promised was that he would create a budget and single spending bills that could be discussed and amended. And she said passing a continuing resolution and just continuing this outrageous spending of Pelosi and Chuck Schumer was absolutely predictable and went against everything McCarthy had promised the Republicans. So, you know, she just made the point that she's not going to be loyal to the Republican Party or to Washington, D.C. She's going to be loyal to the people of South Carolina and to the law. And right now, they're not following the law. And then you have Representative Biggs that argued McCarthy was no longer an effective leader of the GOP caucus during remarks on the floor that he had made Tuesday. And he said McCarthy's like passage of the budget continuing resolution made him complicit in the failures on national debt and on immigration policy. And he failed to use this really bad border policy that's in place as leverage against Biden. And then Representative Rosendale made the point that, quote, "Our country is facing $33 trillion of debt. Our border is facing an unprecedented invasion. And instead of being energy dominant, we are now energy reliant," end quote. So he said that in a statement right before he made the vote. And he went on to say the House of Representatives and the American people deserve a leader who can challenge the status quo and put an end to this ruin. And I agree.
Okay, I agree, but I want to play devil's advocate here for a second because I honestly think McCarthy was put in a position to fail from the very start. Like the Republican Party is so divided, and I honestly think several of them are Democrats anyway. And so realistically speaking, the fact that McCarthy could be ousted by one person, basically, by one person bringing that up, it literally set him up for failure. And I think anyone who replaces him is going to be in that same position.
I agree. But like, here's my thought on it. Because I was thinking the same thing. But it's like, look at how much shit the speakers in the past have gotten away with. And when they put this in place, they probably thought, like, when push comes to shove, no one's actually going to have the balls to use it. Like, it's just a threat, basically. So the fact that they used this, like, right away, that, with this budget thing, I think that the next speaker is going to think twice about passing another continuing resolution. Like, I do think that they're going to be a little more careful at, working with the Democrats and just giving that, like, having the same pattern repeat over and over and over again. I'm hoping, but it's a huge risk because it can go either way. Like, this could make or break the Republican Party and our country. So it's like, it's a huge risk. And everything's so divided in the party right now. But in the meantime, just as a temporary basic, they have Patrick McHenry of North Carolina, who I guess was like at the head of a secret list of interim leaders that Kevin McCarthy submitted when he got the job. So you're going to love this, Tara. This guy did like the best thing I think I've ever seen a Republican, well, maybe not ever, but that I've seen a Republican do in a while. So he sent former Speaker Nancy Pelosi literally packing as he ordered her to leave her private office space that she has in the Capitol. This was in an article by Politico, and I guess they sent an email from the House Administration Committee stating, quote, please vacate the space tomorrow. The room will be rekeyed. The room is being reassigned for Speaker office use, end quote. And then in a statement, according to Politico, Pelosi criticized this forced departure as, quote, a sharp departure from tradition, end quote, claiming that she gave Speaker Dennis Hastert a significantly larger suite of offices for as long as he wished when she assumed the post. And my question is why? Like, why does she still need this office? And why won't these damn people leave DC? It's like freaking retire already. Like, I just think it's so ridiculous. And I love that this guy basically sent her an eviction notice. I think it's like the best thing I've heard in a while.
Yeah, I'm elated that she's been kicked out because she really has no business being there. But I don't know if you saw this. Jim McGovern, he's like the top Democrat in the House Rules Committee. And he basically said that McHenry had no right to kick Pelosi out because he's not the actual House Speaker and he's only the Speaker pro tempore, which means that his only job is to help elect a new House Speaker. So McGovern stated that McHenry, I like how it's like McGovern, McHenry, McDonald's, that he's in violation of Rule 1, Clause 8 of the Rules of the House, which states that McHenry can only exercise as much authority as is, quote, necessary and appropriate, end quote, towards the end of electing a speaker. And he further explained that the Rules Committee narrowly described this rule in 2004. An acting speaker pro tempore serves for the sole purpose of electing a new speaker. These rules were put in place after 9/11 to ensure continuity of government and quick election of a new speaker in an emergency, not to provide for a short-term speaker due to Republican dysfunction. And honestly, I have to say, I agree with him there in the dysfunction part. Like the Republican Party is beyond fractured and dysfunctional. And I honestly think that we're also in a really dangerous position right now with not having a House Speaker. Like whether or not you agree with McCarthy being ousted, the very obvious fact here is that there was no solid plan in place when that decision was made. And frankly, my personal opinion is that that's dumb. and that the GOP is kind of fucking themselves. Because look how long it took for them to even vote McCarthy in. Do you remember what a shit show that was? It was like, what, 15 rounds of voting to even agree on McCarthy? Like, do you really think that they're going to just quickly choose his replacement and everything's going to go smoothly and everyone's going to agree? I don't think so. And whoever replaces him is going to be beholden to this group of conservatives who will make it basically impossible for anything to happen that they don't want to happen, right? So it's like, it's almost like a borderline authoritarian dictatorship. And I'm being a little extreme here, but if you look at it, it's like that's what the Republican Party is against. And I just think it's like a slippery slope. Like, I get where they're coming from, and I agree that spending is completely out of control. But at the same time, like, the lack of planning here concerns me. And McCarthy is now the first Speaker of the House to ever be ousted. And nothing can be done in the House without a House Speaker. No decisions can be made, and no bills can be paid. So it's like right now the House is basically paralyzed. And this whole thing just speaks to what a shit show the Republican Party is. And keep in mind, we still have no agreement on government funding. We just have this pushback until November 17th. So we have no approved budget. We have no organization in the House. And it's a fucking clown show. And like, they're talking about Hakeem Jeffries taking this position. If we get a fucking Democrat as the Speaker of the House, we're screwed.
I agree, but I also feel like Kevin McCarthy was basically a Democrat. Like, everything he's done this year, for the most part, has been exactly what would have been done if Pelosi was in office. Like, if they didn't oust him, they would come back in November and there would be an omnibus bill that got passed. Like that.
Yeah.
That is what was going to happen,
I don't disagree with that. And I'm not a big McCarthy fan. I just think that doing this without having a plan in place is just going to make things worse.
See, that this is where I think there is a plan in place. I think, and since the very beginning, when Matt Gaetz put that stipulation in, I think there has been a plan and it's been very thought out, but they're not going to reveal their cards. Of course, they could not have a plan too, but I just kind of have a feeling there is a plan just based on some of the rumors going around. So McCarthy has said he's not going to run again. He posted that on X. And then Ohio Rep Jim Jordan, who I really like Jim Jordan. I feel like he's an honest guy. He threw his name in the hat. And then most likely, like you said, the Democrat House Leader Hakeem Jeffries will run. Now, Steve Scalise, at first, I didn't know that he would, just because he's been diagnosed with blood cancer and has been away up for like treatment and things like that. But now he is saying he's going to run, and he's the second most powerful Republican in the House, and he has a lot of people backing him. I'm kind of surprised Jim Jordan would run against him, because they're pretty close, but I think he would get approved probably. But then there's all these rumors about Trump. And remember, like, back when they were going to, they were talking about McCarthy becoming speaker. And I was like, what if it's Trump? Because then they could get him in office without like having this rigged election and blah, blah, blah. Well, so all these rumors started, and I'm like, surely not, like, at this point. But then they asked Trump about it, and I watched a video of him, and he's like, yeah, a lot of people are calling me and asking me if I would be the speaker. And he's like, we'll do what's best for the country and what's best for the Republican Party. So, like, what does that mean, Tara? Do you think that he actually would run?
I think it would be awesome if he did, but there's really no way he'd get the votes. I mean, realistically, I don't know. I think there's too many Republicans that are against him, and really, would he have time to be Speaker of the House when he's in court, like literally in court half the time fighting all of these legal battles? Like, I read an article in The Guardian that talked about how he's facing over 91 criminal charges. 91. If you look at everything from election subversion, retention of classified information, hush money payments, civil threats for fraud and defamation. But technically, though, the Speaker of the House doesn't have to be a member of Congress. So I think it would be awesome. Historically, this has never happened, but then historically, I don't recall us ever having such a shit show Congress before. So who knows?
I think it's interesting because I would say, like, my gut instinct is like, no, like, he's, got this huge lead in the presidency. He's running for president, but he clearly, truly thinks that he lost the election because it was rigged. So why would you think that wouldn't happen again if he continues on with the election for presidency? So this would be a way for him to get in a very powerful position without going through an election. And then, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I did you hear something like he wants to get rid of primaries? Did you see that?
I didn't see that. I had heard him say at this point they shouldn't even have any more Republican primaries because he's so far ahead. But that was all I've really heard about it.
Okay, I swear I saw something, but then I couldn't find it.
It
So
could be. I mean, he did say, like, he was like, I don't know why, because they're asking him now that he didn't show up to the second debate, like, they're asking him if he's going to show up to the next one. He's like, I don't even know why we're having these. Like, I'm so far ahead. Why aren't they just calling, the winner at this point? Um, so I mean, that's Trump though. Like, you never know what the fuck he's going to say. But like, okay, look at when he was president and Pelosi was speaker. She got a lot of shit done on the Democrat side, a
yeah.
lot of stuff through. And I almost feel like he could get more things back in order doing that versus the presidency, especially when you have like a Democrat led Senate. So I don't know. Like, I do think it's a possibility, but my gut's telling me no. But he's in hot water right now, like with all of
Right.
these charges. And I think it would just depend on like what is going to benefit. And if he really thinks like they're going to let him become president again, because clearly they're trying to do anything they can to stop it. So it could kind of like be a solution in a way, because if he drops out of the presidency, I don't know, maybe they'll, who knows? I don't know. But
I
it's
just think
interesting.
there's too many members of the House that would not be on his side.
But I think at least with the Republicans, if they go against him and he has this huge lead and we see what's happening in the polling, that could be career suicide for them. Like, are their constituents going to vote them back in if they don't vote for Trump? And then even the Democrats, like, people don't want Biden, and these Democrats, like, it's just the tides are turning. So, but I agree what you're saying. Like, it is risky because all it takes is a couple people to vote
Yeah.
no, and then you're screwed. But I hope whoever becomes speaker will do a better job of not playing out the same predictable series of events. Like, we have literally seen the same story play out
Yeah.
every freaking year. And we can't keep ending up with these omnibus spending bills. They're absolutely insane. And for anyone that is looking at these 8 Republicans thinking like, man, they are so extreme and crazy, I want to play a clip from Jesse Waters on Fox News where he laid out some things that are truly insane, which are the spending that's thrown into these bills that you're forced to vote on. So take a listen to this.
Big old 50,000 page bill you can't read. But Primetime just read what the politicians want stuffed inside. Are you ready? $1.5 million for a carbon neutral bird sanctuary in Virginia. How about this? $1 million to put solar paneled roofs on low income housing in California. $250,000 to give Teslas to people in the projects. Where would they charge them? Don't worry. $500,000 for charging stations. $3 million for a playground in California. Now, we researched what a playground costs to install. 50,000 tops. About $7 million for an inclusive and equitable park. What makes a park inclusive or equitable? I mean, do they lower the hoops so whites can dunk? We don't know. $5 million to put Wi-Fi in a park. When have you ever been on a park and said, darn it, I can't get Wi-Fi here? $1 million to put grass and trees in a parking lot. Okay, I called my landscaper and he said sodding a parking lot, $2 a square foot, 30,000 square feet is 60,000. And he said $500 a tree. So let's say I want 100 trees in the parking lot. So that's 50 grand. We just sodded and planted trees for about $900,000 below cost. $11 million for a machine gun range. No wonder they think Mar-a-Lago is worth 18 mil. And Nancy Pelosi asked for a $5 million elevator at a train station. How many stories is this train station? 100? Then there's AOC. AOC wants $500,000 to remodel a bathroom and a library. I didn't even know AOC's constituents use the libraries. AOC also wants $1 million to refurbish a basketball court. All right. It's outdoors, so you pave it, you paint the free throw line, paint the three-point line, the half-court line, and you put up 2 hoops that won't break when I dunk on them. And we got a quote to build a basketball court from scratch, 75,000 tops.
Okay, so I just had to highlight because, like, as funny as that is, this is the kind of shit that they put in these bills. And then you know, they wait until the last minute so no one has an opportunity to thoroughly read through them, debate them, and everything else, and they get passed.
Yeah, but on top of that, it's only Congress that's reading this stuff anyway, even if they do read it. And look at us, the taxpayers, the voters. We don't know any of this shit. We don't know what's in any of these bills. I mean, that spending is absolutely insane.
Right. And I think that was like the point that Nancy Mace was making. It's like Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter. None of this is good for the American people. And I mean, like, everyone has to admit that. I don't think anyone would like look at that and be like, yeah, that's really smart. That's being responsible. No, like, we're paying for that. The taxpayers are paying for that. So, yeah, that's why we can't keep doing these omnibus spending bills. And now it's not just shit like that. It's billions of dollars additionally going to Ukraine.
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see what happens and if how long it takes to get a new House Speaker. But I want to switch gears real quick and try to end this on a positive note, since our Fridays are always like very negative. But I am questioning the motive for what I'm about to say. So it seems that Biden is now urgently trying to construct a border wall in Texas to combat the migrant crisis that he created and has pretended hasn't existed for the past 2 years. So this past Wednesday, DHS Secretary Mayorkas stated, quote, "There is presently an acute and immediate need to construct physical barriers and roads in the vicinity of the border of the United States in order to prevent unlawful entries into the United States. I must use my authority under Section 102 of IIRIRA, which is the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act of 1996, to install additional physical barriers and roads in the Rio Grande, whatever it is, Valley sector."
And you think?
Right? Yes. And in his statement, he cited that U.S. Border Patrol statistics are showing that more than 245,000 migrants have illegally crossed the border in Starr County since early August. And I was reading an article in the Epic Times from this past Monday, where Mexico's president warned that the United States is soon going to see around 10,000 migrants arriving at the border every day, based on the number of migrants that are crossing from Guatemala into Mexico every day for the past week. So Mayorkas is apparently waiving 26 federal regulations in order to fast track construction in what he calls, quote, high illegal entry zones. And so these regulations include things like the National Environmental Policy Act, the Endangered Species Act, and the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. So side note, like, what the fuck are these? Like, how many ridiculous acts does our government even make up? Because I swear we're just paying people to come up with nonsense. And speaking of paying, like, how is this border wall being paid for? Well, surprise, surprise, the DHS is going to use funds allocated by Congress back in 2019 when Trump wanted to build the border wall that Biden immediately stopped when he became president. And frankly, I'm surprised that those funds haven't already gone to Ukraine. But in the spirit of positivity, I'm going to hope that this border wall actually gets built.
Okay, so let me get this straight. He sold the border wall materials like a month ago.
Right.
And now he wants to build a wall that he said he was going to tear down when Trump wanted to do it. Okay, this guy.
Hence my questioning the motives.
Okay, so I think that's great news. I think it's positive, and I'm so sorry, but I'm going to throw a negative spin on it because alarm bells are going off in my mind.
Right.
Like, why? What is the motive? Why now? Well, what just happened recently? Europe got invaded by all of these African single men. Things are heating up in the World War III saga. And maybe they realize, like, oh shit, these people aren't going to be voters that are going to help the Democrat Party. These are people that are going to attack us from the inside. Like, that is what worries me. And I hope I'm wrong. I really, really, really hope I'm wrong. But hey, at least he's building a wall.
So much for positivity.
Sorry, I can't help myself.
No, that's why I prefaced it by saying, like, I don't trust the motive of this.
Yeah, it's like when Biden does something right, red flags, major red flags, you know?
Exactly.
Oh, man. Well, okay. We'll keep everyone posted on that one as well. But thanks for bringing that up because I did not know about that. All right. Well, we'll let you guys know what goes on and hopefully we get a new speaker ASAP. We'll keep everyone posted and thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. If you're sick of all the crazy shit going on in our country and you want to express your support and patriotism for the show, head on over to our Etsy store at UO Patriot Chicks and check out our new stickers. The link can also be found on our website. If you love the show and you want exclusive episodes, support the podcast and join the conversation by becoming a member of our Patreon community. We'll be posting weekly member-only podcast episodes and content that isn't available on the weekly podcast. Every Patreon member will also get a free Unapologetically Outspoken sticker and updates about our new sticker release before they're made public. And be sure to follow us on TikTok at Unapologetically Outspoken. And if you haven't done so already, please rate and review the podcast. The more you support us, the more people we can reach. So help us spread the word.